This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman, and we're broadcasting from Park City, Utah, home of the Sundance Film Festival, the nation's largest festival for independent cinema. We're broadcasting from its headquarters. Today, we speak with one of the most famous independent filmmakers in the world, Michael Moore. For the past 20 years, Michael has been one of the most politically active, provocative, and successful documentary filmmakers in the business. His films include Roger and Me, Fahrenheit 9/11, Bowling for Columbine, for which he won the Academy Award, and his latest, Capitalism, A Love Story. Michael Moore was in Park City this week to watch some of this year's selections for the Sundance Film Festival. He's also choosing some for his own, the Traverse City Film Festival in Michigan, where he now lives. I had a chance to sit down with Michael Moore just after a film screening, just before he headed back to his hometown in Michigan. I began by asking him about the situation in Haiti.
Well, I mean, the most wonderful thing about when you say the U.S. response is that the individual Americans have immediately rallied, that day, to wanting to help, whether it was texting a donation to the Red Cross or volunteering to go down there. People immediately began collecting. I was in Miami when the earthquake happened, and so I saw a lot of it there. I mean, just the Haitian community and others in South Florida. There was a doctor in Fort Lauderdale who owned his own private plane and just decided not to wait for the government to give him any clearance. He just went to the airport, literally hopped in his plane, went there, gathered as many injured as he could, put him in his plane. This is like with no permission or anything, and brought 15 or so people back to the Fort Lauderdale hospital. I mean, I thought, God, why don't we see more of that? But the response from our government is once again the sort of, clunky, we're too big, the saying, we're too big to fail. This is like, we're too big to succeed. That's what it feels like. Now, I will say this. Obama immediately, within hours, trying to pull the apparatus together and put it into motion, was in marked contrast to what we saw during Katrina and other events during the Bush years. So on that first day, I remember feeling really good about that. By the second and the third day, when no real help had arrived, and the concern turned mostly to how are the Americans doing there? The Americans at the embassy, the Americans at the Montana hotel, et cetera, et cetera. And naturally, of course, I mean, it's human nature to care about your own first, but I would hope by this point that we're in a place where we just care about everybody and that we don't see ourselves as more human or more worthy of life.
Didn't you know a group of nurses who wanted to go, more than a group?
Oh my God! Well, this is the National Nurses Union. This is the saddest thing that's happened, and I would hope anybody listening to this or watching this would respond and put pressure on the Bush administration. The National Nurses Union.
The Obama administration?
Yeah, what did I say? The
Bush administration?
Yeah, we already put pressure on them. They're no longer with us. That wasn't just Freudian. That is my state of mind. That is how I'm, feeling because I won't accept the sugar-coated difference between the Obama administration and the Bush administration. And you can say on the surface just how great things are in terms of compared to the last eight years. But the substance, when it comes to the rubber meeting the road, I can't tell you how profoundly disappointed I am at this point. And this situation with the National Nurses Union, they went out to their membership. Who would be willing to go to Haiti right now? over 11,000, almost 12,000 nurses, 12,000 nurses around this country have signed up who are willing to go right now to Haiti. I don't know if I heard it on your show last week or someplace that, you know, essentially one nurse could provide help for dozens of people. So just imagine if we could get 12,000 nurses there with the necessary supplies, how many people could have been helped? I mean, this offer was made days and days ago.
To who?
To the Obama administration from the executive director of the National Nurses Union. She contacted the administration. She got put off. She had no response. Then they sent her to some low-level person that had no authority to do anything. And then finally she's contacting me, and she says, do you know any way to get a hold of President Obama? And I'm going, well, this is pretty pathetic if you're having to call me. I mean, you are the largest nurses union. You are, I believe, one of the vice presidents of the AFL-CIO, of the main board of the AFL-CIO, and you can't get a call into the White House to get 12,000 nurses down there. I don't know what I can do for you. I mean, I'll put my call in too. But as we sit here today, not a whole heck of a lot has happened, and it's distressing. It's just one example, I think, of so many things, and you covered a lot of it last week when you were there, that just have fallen through here.
Well, let's stay on the issue of health care, but in this country, as all this was going down in Haiti, the Massachusetts election took place, replacing the late Senator Ted Kennedy, and it was the Republican who won, Scott Brown. This has profound implications for health care, but you've been critical about the direction President Obama's been pushing on health care. Talk about this year in health care and what you see needs to be done.
Well, I sent a note off to the White House the night of the Massachusetts election, and I said to President Obama, I'm sure you're not surprised. What did you think was going to happen after a year of completely going back on everything you promised in terms of real universal health care? A year of you not getting us out of Afghanistan, but escalating the war to a degree that is shocking. What did you expect to happen after a year of, instead of coming in to tie these banks and these institutions down and make them pay for what the damage they've done to the average American, instead giving them more help, more of a bailout? It's like, what did you think was going to happen in Massachusetts? That your base was just going to wake up on Tuesday morning and go, oh, I can't wait to go to the polls and vote for somebody to back everything that's been going on? I think a lot of people woke up and said, I could care less at this point. I'm so upset, and I'm not going to go vote. Now, of course, the other side, they're always up. They're up at like 5 a.m. trying to figure out how to screw the human race. So I'm not surprised they got to the polls. But I think that it was a good trailer, a good coming attraction for this November. And Obama a year ago, man, he just had it right in his hands. He really could have chosen a different path. The country was demanding it. There was such an excitement that we were going to turn radically away from where we'd been in these last 8 years and create the country that we all want it to be. Vast majority of people voted for him. And that he thought that the way to go in was to go in trying to be like the other side. This is the continual and historic failure of the Democratic Party in our lifetime. That they think the only way they're going to survive is to be Republican light, and every time that happens, it goes kaboom.
How did 60 become the new 51? I mean, when the pharmaceutical bill went through that supposedly the Democrats were very, very against. The Republicans didn't have 60 votes, but it passed. How is it, I mean, what's so key about Massachusetts, of course, is that it means the Democratic voting bloc doesn't have 60 votes. But why did they need that?
Well, remember, we were being led for 8 years by a president who barely was a C- student. Okay, so when you have stupid people in charge, 60 sounds like a majority of 100. Yeah, I think that's what we need is 60, and they just they somehow were able to convince the American people that 60 is 50. I think, all kidding aside, that this is another example of the Democrats are essentially a bunch of wimps. They don't have the guts. They don't have the courage of their own convictions. They're disgusting. I'm embarrassed. I want really nothing to do with them. And if they don't find their spine, well, they're in for a huge surprise in November.
It is Michael Moore, the Academy Award-winning filmmaker. We sat down together on Sunday morning here in Park City at the Sundance Film Festival. We'll continue with our conversation in a minute.
Down my sword and shield, down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield, way down by the riverside. I ain't gonna study war no more. 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 Ain't gonna study war no more. I'm gonna lay down the bombs and guns way down by the riverside, way down by the riverside, way down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down the bombs and guns way down by the riverside. Ain't gonna study.
Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We're broadcasting from the Sundance Film Festival, the home of independent filmmaking, the largest film festival for independent media in this country. As we continue now with my conversation with Michael Moore, the Academy Award-winning filmmaker, his last films, Sicko, and then, well, Capitalism, a love story. Do you think healthcare will pass in any way, and do you think it should? I mean, you did the film Sicko. Yeah, you told us about the different systems around the world, that we're actually the exception, not the other systems, though they may differ in various ways, France, Canada, Britain.
I mean, should this healthcare bill pass? No. No, it shouldn't. Neither the Senate nor the House bill. They're both wrong. And there are parts of them that are great. And maybe what they should have done from the beginning, instead of calling it a universal health care bill, which is a lie, they just should have had a bill that say, let's pass a law that prohibits people being denied insurance because of pre-existing conditions. Pass that law. Let's have a law that says kids can stay on their parents' health insurance to age 25. Pass that law. I mean, that probably now, looking at their inability to organize their way out of a vast majority box that they've been in, they can't even figure out how to lead when they have a mandate. So at this point, I hope that they don't vote for either of those, and I hope that the people watching this and listening to this, and everybody else out there gets active, because it isn't going to happen on its own. And certainly none of the Obama people are going to make it happen. That is for damn sure.
Okay, let's talk about, Capitalism Love Story just came out, and we're looking now today, when we look at the economy, when we look at the state of our union, Ben Bernanke, the question of whether he should be reconfirmed, Timothy Geithner as Treasury Secretary. And when we're looking at a Supreme Court decision, unprecedented, overruling years of precedent of corporate money just, if it hasn't already, the floodgates opened on them flooding politics in this country. Put that all together.
Man, that's so depressing. It's like the way this last week has been a rough week for democracy. I mean, I would be lying if I said that I wasn't in a total state of despair at this moment. And I'm not usually one that goes there. I mean, I'm usually like, let's go. I have that Supreme Court ruling, and the disgusting part of it is how I got dragged into it. That the whole argument before the Supreme Court and the justices and the attorneys for the other side discussing Fahrenheit 9/11. I don't know if you
explain the whole thing.
Well, the Supreme Court case that was decided was based on the fact that the Federal Elections Commission declared this anti-Hillary ad an ad, and the other side they were calling it a documentary.
She's deceitful. She'll make up any story, lie about anything, as long as it serves her purpose of the moment.
Ruthless, vindictive,
venal, sneaky,
ideological, intolerant.
Liar is a good one.
Scares the hell out of me.
And the FEC said, no, this is an ad, and you have to follow the election laws in terms of where the money comes from. You have to report this. And they said, no, it's just like Michael Moore's Fahrenheit 9/11. That was produced and distributed by a corporation, the Weinstein Company, et cetera, et cetera. And so the justices, they all had this discussion about why did Michael Moore get to distribute his film and not have to deal with the FEC? And they did. And that was the case that was decided. The justices decided, yeah, that's not right. And so we're just going to now open up the floodgates and let all this money pour in. So
So you're the cause of this?
I got to tell you, my own Catholic guilt and I have thought about this for the last few days. I not that I'm the cause of it, but the thing is, and this is how they got away with it, is basically you really never want the government, any arm of the government, whether it's the FEC or the Supreme Court, deciding who can say what, period. I think what I do is a form of journalism. It's essentially a filmed version of the op-ed page, my op-ed page. And it's full of lots of facts and information. It also is full of my opinion. The right would say, no, that's not true. You were just out there trying to get Bush out of the White House and get Kerry elected with Fahrenheit 9/11. And I could say and prove, of course, that I started working on that film long before there was a John Kerry for president. And I never spoke to anybody in the Kerry campaign, and I'm sure they didn't want to speak to me. So that had nothing to do with that. Whereas the Hillary thing was specifically set up to be out there during the campaign in 2008 to stop Hillary Clinton. But you can see how it could get confusing and how they can create the ball of confusion in all of this. And of course, where did my money come from? Well, my money came from a Hollywood studio. Hollywood studio is a corporation, not only just a corporation, but in this case, Fahrenheit 9/11 was made by Miramax, which is part of the Walt Disney Company. So you can see where they go with this. And I think that I hate it when the other side, I hate it because I also in some weird way admire them. They're so good at what they do, the evil that they perpetrate, their ability to rally people. And, of course, the amount of funding that they receive. Just to make this clear, the Walt Disney Company, once they saw Fahrenheit 9/11, Mr. Michael Eisner said, we in no way are ever releasing this movie. And as everyone knows the story, we made this public, and he had to admit that they were trying to censor the film, and then I was able to get the film out because of a public outcry about it. So we will never have the resources. I just got a phone call from a freshman congressman in Michigan, a good guy, who beat the incumbent Republican in 2008, asking me for a donation for his reelection this year. And I just felt like, why? Because I have whatever amount of money I could give you, or everybody else in here, or people we know could give you, will never, ever match what corporate America has. If that's really if that's the new rule now, then we've already lost. We've already lost. So how do we fight this now? Because their propaganda machine that's funded now will have billions of dollars behind this to manipulate an uneducated American public. When I say uneducated, I'm talking about an American public, as you know, where we rank in the world in math and science and literacy, all these things. We're so far behind so many other countries. We have 40 million functional illiterates in this country, 40 million adults who can't read and write above a fourth grade level. If you create a country where the education system sucks so bad, where you make it your lowest priority, and then you want to create some propaganda to easily lead them down the path you want to lead them down, it's a cakewalk at that point. When you have this enforced ignorance, the illiteracy that's encouraged, the C- president who was so proud of himself and encouraging others that was cool. That was cool to be dumb. And that's what we've just lived through this first decade of this century. And now they're going to have billions of dollars to manipulate our fellow Americans. What are we going to do, Amy? Seriously. I mean, as I sit here, I don't have the answer, but, we have your show. What else do we have?
You talk about us and them. Timothy Geithner, do you think he should be Treasury Secretary?
Absolutely not. He never should have been Treasury. I said that at the beginning, and it was, I joked, I think, about it with you like a year ago. I said, maybe he's just bringing him in to clean up the mess he created. Something like a parent would do, okay, you broke this, get in here and clean it up. Clearly that's not what his purpose was for this year. His purpose was there to protect Goldman Sachs, to protect the banks and Wall Street. And he's done a fine job of doing that and making sure that, again, they are back to record profits, record bonuses, all of this stuff.
How does this play in Michigan? That's where you live now, and you live in Flint, one of the most depressed areas in the country.
People are so angry, and I think, of course, this is partly what happened in Massachusetts. And it's partly why Obama got elected, because people were so angry at what happened to their lives, to the economy, to our reputation as Americans, that a country that is essentially still has a huge problem with race, a certain number of Americans were able to put their feelings about race aside because they were so angry at what was going on. That was interesting and somewhat impressive. I think that anger and the anger in Michigan, we're going to end up with a Republican governor this November. I already see it. I can already feel it happening. I think because people are so upset. I mean, you've got an official unemployment rate of over 15%. Unofficially, I mean, the county I live in is over 20% officially. So it's really over 30% at least. People are very, very upset and can now be easily manipulated as people who are hurting have been. I mean, historically, we don't have to, we know the examples. We're sitting here what happens when those in power, those who support corporate interests, who support right-wing ideology, they used to call it fascism, they're the pros at manipulating the public when the public is hurting. And so expect to see that, and that's what I expect to see. And, of course, I'm not just going to sit back and let it happen, and I know people watching this, listening to this, feel the same way, but we're going to have to get it together, and get it together pretty damn quick, because they're already 10 miles down the road in front of us.
President Obama's State of the Union address, what should he say?
He should acknowledge why he got elected. He should acknowledge why he took the job to serve the American people and then to lead, and why those American people wanted him there. And he should apologize. He should apologize for this first year. Yeah, he's actually, to use the phrase, man enough to do that. I think he has that in him. I think people would be pleasantly stunned to hear that admission. I think the base the next morning would be up out of bed and rallying around him if he said, you know what, I tried a different path. I'm a nice guy. I thought I'd hold out the olive branch. I thought I'd, not rock the boat too much because I know people were nervous about me in their White House. So I tried to be, not threatening. I get all that, right? He unfortunately has to carry that baggage with him because of the racism that exists in this country. Okay, but now he tried it that way, didn't work. And what he said last week to the banks and to Wall Street, if that was any indication of the change of heart he may be starting to have, I'd like to hear more of that this week at the State of the Union address.
Should Ben Bernanke be out?
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. But again, they've got that's so locked up. All these guys should be gone. Larry Summers, they never should have been there in the first place. It is so bizarre that Paul Volcker is essentially the hero of this story on some level. That they shoved him out, and now he apparently is back in. So I don't know what that means, but
what is the lesson of capitalism a love story for what we're seeing today in the United States and Obama America?
Well, capitalism and democracy are the opposite of each other. Capitalism is a system that guarantees that a few are going to do very well and everybody else is going to serve the few. Democracy means everybody has a seat at the table. Everybody. And the wealth that is created is shared amongst everybody. That's democracy. That's the basic tenet of virtually every faith. This temple, the Christian church, Islam, the Buddhists, the things that every religious people say they believe in, that is one of the first tenets of those religions, that we all sit at the table. And that we don't create a society that shoves so many off into the other room. So capitalism has had some incredible victories in the last week. They've had a weak president and a scared Congress during this last year. So they are running a number of victory laps right now. They've been popping a lot of corks. But we, all of us, have to remember that there's more of us than there are of them. There always have been. There always will be. There's nothing to be afraid of here. It's time to step up and take this country back. And, I will climb out of my own personal despair of what I've witnessed in this last week. I will pray for those in Haiti who suffer, those who have died just during the course of this interview. Hundreds, maybe thousands, just during this brief time. And I will demand that my government get help to those people and start behaving the way we expect them to behave.
Michael Moore, thanks so much.
Thank you.
That's Academy Award-winning filmmaker Michael Moore speaking at the Sundance Film Festival here in Park City, Utah, the nation's largest festival for independent cinema.